Try this.
And that's okay. We don't get our second Spiteful Summoner, but now he's in big time trouble. So there we got it. We just got Legend.
Well played.
First time. I'm really proud of this moment about getting Legend. So part of this video I just want to talk about, I mean, some of you guys watch my YouTube channel for some Hearthstone videos, which I really appreciate because I like the game. Let me tell you a little bit about hitting Legend rank. The meta is really a vast majority of the games are against Priest. 31% of the games, so 1 in 3 games we play are against Priest. And I would say about half and half are the Razakus priests, and half are sort of the deck I'm playing or a variation of the deck, but mostly they play the main deck version of this, which has the Netherspite Historians in this rather than the Free from Ambers. 24% of the time, or 1/4 of the time, so 1/3 of the time you're playing against priests in those two variations, and then 24% of the time you're playing against Paladin. And basically every game you're going to play against, actually 18% of the time you're playing against Warlock. And almost every one of those Warlock games is basically the game I just finished here with, or you'll see at the end of the video where I hit Legend rank. Basically they're playing this cube Warlock deck. So they're trying to like get a bunch of minions, really try to beat you on the value trade of it and outvalue you. And there's some debate the value of it, if they can outvalue you on those minions particularly. Then 12% of the games are against mages. So 1 in 10 games are against mages. And then those are all secret mages. 100% of those matches are against secret mages. I only played one, by the way, back to Warlock just real quick. One game was against aggro Warlock. And I think aggro Warlock is even better than cube Warlock, but I think all the aggro players that used to play like Pirate Warrior and just aggro in general have moved to Paladin because of Call to Arms. That's why 1/4 of the games are against aggro Paladin. If you want to hit, I played this version of this deck because this deck is just all around really strong. It had a 63% win rate when I played it. HS Replay gives it a 59% rating. So basically 2 in 3 games you can win with this deck. This deck is a tier 1 top tier deck. So how do you hit Legend? Basically you have to know, number one is you have to play the game quite a bit, I think. To get to like rank 5. After you get to rank 5, you can there's no more win streak stars. So you can't just like play a really powerful deck like this and get win streaks. You literally have to win 25 games in a row, essentially. Assuming you have like a 50-50 win rate. So you have to have a better than a 50-50 win rate or it's going to take you forever. It actually only took me about 8 hours to play to get to Legend rank from rank 5. About 1 day of game time, depending just 1 day, but playing with a tier 1 deck. And then the second thing that you have to do to hit Legend rank is just understand the meta and what decks you're going to play against. So I described the breakdown of all the decks really. There's really only 4 or 5 decks that I'm playing against. I play against 0 shamans, very few rogues. I'm trying to think of what else. Very few druids. Basically, there's a very homogeneous amount of decks to play against. Aggro Paladin, Priest, which you have the 2 variations, so that's 2 more decks, that's 3 decks. You have Cube Warlock, which is 4 decks. Then you have Secret Mage, which is 5 decks. That's 5 decks, really, and that's pretty much it. There is so about 5% of the time, they're going to be playing another class in some wonky class, and that's almost going to be an edge for you in this particular meta in the first Kobold's expansion here, because just the way the game is set up. You have to understand how to play against those decks. So like I knew this guy was a cube Warlock, so it helps you redefine your Mulligan. A lot of how to win Hearthstone is setting up your Mulligan and knowing what type of deck you're going to be playing against a majority of the time, setting up your hand, your initial hand, the best way you can. Someone said this as a quote, I can't remember, it was a pro player. He said basically like good decks never get bad draws. I mean, you're going to always get some bad draws, which is going to be why you're going to lose 1/3 of your games. and your opponent maybe gets like a nut draw. It's just really hard to beat. Oh, and Hunters is a class I very rarely play against, so like Seeker Hunters. Now, Kibler, by the way, did get to Legend playing a Katharina Big Hunter. So, but he is a very good player. He's a world-class pro player. So you don't really want to deviate from the meta. In other words, like I'm playing a tier 1 deck because it is a tier 1 deck. Because I want to win, I want to get Legend, right? So I don't want to be like crafty and think I'm really smart, so I can like try to play something really funky and beat people with, especially with like a control style deck. Because with control style decks, you're gonna lose. So let me describe the deck, this deck here, on which I was able to get Legend with. And you can see the deck list on the right. And we're gonna just back out of this and we're gonna walk through that deck list. All right, cool. Got the Legend back. Cool, huh? There's the Legend card back. That's something else you get when you get Legend. I call this deck list the broken deck list. And this video, I know it might be a little lengthy, but I'm going to show you some games after this video on how I got to Legend, just the last few games, kind of typical games at rank 1. This deck shout out goes to Zalea and Firebat from Omni Slash. They actually have a YouTube channel. They're both pro players. And I basically took this deck because they improved the Satellites deck, which was basically on week 1, this guy got to Legend rank 3. So we were already taking a deck that's very good, that was able to get to basically top Legend, or Legend 1, Legend 2, Legend 3, right? And we're already improving. They improved that deck by cutting out, say, like Netherspy Historian and like Free from Amber and Trash, sort of like variance trash cards. So another thing about Hearthstone is, just I think in general, is you want to cut down on all the RNG. The RNG is great. It makes the game actually a lot of fun. But if you're trying to get Legend or you're trying to rank up through ladder, you don't want to play with the less RNG you put in your deck, the better. Pretty much all those decks, the meta decks I'm playing against, the only RNG that they have is basically the cards they get in their hand. Let's walk through each one of the cards and like why they're in the deck. Narshar Cleric is just a fantastic 1-drop because it's a 1/3 statted minion. Like typically most classes have a 1/3 statted minion. Like they just came out with a new Beast, which is a 1/3, and it's a neutral card. So it's just a great initial play. It's really difficult on turn 1 to destroy a 1/3. The only way it can really be done is like if a rogue backstabs you and plays like Patches, right? Patches the Pirate is just a broken card. I think it's from Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. It's just a very broken card, okay? It's a card you don't want to draw, but when you draw it, you also pull it out of your deck, so you improve your draw quality. And very rarely do you draw this card, and you always draw it when we only play with 2 other pirates with their South Sea Captain, okay? So shout outs to, again, Firebat and Zalea for making this just phenomenal list. And we play Prince Keliseth because like all the rogues in last season used to play Prince Keliseth. This card is OP. It buffs every one of your cards. It allows you to out-tempo your opponents. So instead of playing like, again, those Netherspy Historians, now I'll tell you the reason there's a disadvantage to playing that as well. The Netherspy Historians against all these Paladin decks, remember you're going to play them 20% of the time, 25% of the time. You need lots of Dust Breakers to just clear the board out. The more Dust Breakers you have, you can just clear the board against aggro all day. And that's going to be your primary aggro they're going to be fighting against. And so Prince Keliseth, though, against every other deck, outvalues your deck, the opponent. So it's a phenomenal 2-drop. You can actually play it off the coin. The only time you don't want to play it really off the coin, or turn 2, or going second, is if your opponent plays like Narshar Cleric on 1. Curious Glimmerroot is a broken card, right? It's just plain and simple. Basically, it's a 3/3, so it's very well statted, but it's like you draw a card, right? Now, in certain cases where if you're trying to play around Divine Favor from Paladins, you might want to miss that draw. It's like Call to Arms in this deck. If you see that in their deck, it's pretty terrible. Cabal Talon Priest is a broken card because it's so well statted. It's a 3/4 minion, but if you have another minion like a Narshar Cleric already on the board because the opponent is too afraid to play something into it, you buff it. So it's really powerful. And when you buff it with Keleseth, it's insanely statted. It's a 4/5 minion, is a 3-drop. South Sea Captain, the only reason why we really have this card in our deck is to gain tempo. This is a tempo, by the way. This is a tempo deck. This deck is a king tempo deck. It can out-tempo rogues. It can out-tempo almost anyone. South Sea Captain, we play it. Patches comes out of the deck. It allows us free 2 damage against the thing to gain tempo on the board. So rogue plays like Firefly. We can actually trade into that. Boom, hit that guy because we coin out. Say they go 1, play a Firefly. 2, they dagger up. 3, we play South Sea Captain. Boom, and we're already ahead on tempo against a rogue. And it's what rogues actually play too. And if you are able to draw Keleseth, well, now it's a 3/3 Patches coming on the board. Patches is just a broken card. Twilight Acolyte, it's an amazing card. And a lot of priests, almost nobody plays it, I'm surprised. Actually, almost none of the priests play this, even when they play like dragon variants or even this type of version of the deck. If you think about it, this card is more powerful than Shadow Word Death and Shadow Word Pain. So it's just, that's why you don't need the spells, right? Because this card replaces those spells. Because really with Shadow Word Death and Shadow Word Pain is you're trying to neutralize a threat on the board. And this you also gain, again, tempo-wise, we gain a very well-statted minion, a 2/4 statted minion. Very well-statted, but we swap it. And say, and Zalea actually said this too, say if someone plays a 3-drop minion and we're going on 3, we're next up, boom, we just steal it. And they now have like a 2/3 minion, and then we have a 3/4 minion. So we gain tempo on the board just by canceling out. But if you want to be greedier with this, so like against, I'm just thinking off the back, against like Corridor Creepers, the Kobold Scalebane targets, the Bone Mares, you can steal those huge, it's a huge tempo swing. And the problem is that since it's at 4 HP, it leaves a huge body on the board. This deck, the reason why it's called broken is because we play broken cards, and this is another broken card. Dustbreaker was one of the top rated cards in the expansion. It's a super powerful card. It's just basically an anti-aggro card, but it's also great, as you'll see in my game, the last game on how I hit Legend. It actually can win you games by just, if you know how to play around things, for clearing out like the Void Lord stuff. When you actually kill the Void Lord as a bunch of, use a bunch of 1/3 minions on the board, Dustbreaker clears them all out. Twilight Drake, this is not a fantastic card, but as far as the power level of all the cards in the deck, but as a 4-drop, you know, you often do have like a lot of cards in hand, and it can sometimes you play this card, it's a 4/8. As a 4-drop, as a 4/8 statted minion, that's extremely powerful, right? If it's Keleseth, it's even more broke. It comes out as a 5/2 in your hand. You play it against +1 for every card in your hand. So it's mostly a dragon that we have in our deck just to basically try to give more dragon synergies in the deck. Kobold Scalebane is a common from the last one, Knights of the Frozen Throne. And this card is broke. If you think about it, we play a 5/5 minion for 5 mana. But if we have it, since it's a tempo deck, we often have another minion on the board. And guess what? That minion now is +3. So it's like playing an 8/5. You know, if you think about it. And it's again, as a tempo card. And it's extremely hard to deal with. It's a win more card. So, and you have to, between that and Dragonoid Operative, say if you have like 3 dragons in your hand, you sometimes have an issue playing that. But remember that this card is you have to, it's kind of like how the old 3-drop was for, that's not really played anymore, Vicious Fledgling. You have to deal with this card. Otherwise it spins out of control and is bonkers. So if you don't deal with it, it just starts buffing minions like crazy. And then like against Paladin decks too, if like you play this out and they don't deal with it, and you just start trading and healing this back up to full, or you Talon Priest it the next turn, it's very difficult to deal with. Dragonoid Operative is the most powerful dragon basically card in the game. Not only is it like broken stats, it's a 5/6 statted minion, but you draw a card. You get to choose a card out of your opponent's deck. Now, granted, you have to have dragons in your hand, but most of the time you do have dragons in your hand because you're drawing cards. Because your early game is so weak, you are drawing cards. Your early game isn't ridiculously weak, but it's weak enough to where. But the odds are that you'll draw a dragon, you know, is very high. And you're gonna draw this dragon. You're gonna basically pick out a card from your opponent's deck. Against like aggro paladin, don't be greedy. Don't pick like the Valinir or that or this or that. Pick like that little 1-drop taunt minion, because man, that's a lifesaver. Because they have so many like just little nuisance cards. Well, they have to spend, you know, 2 guys to commit into that taunt minion, because that card is also broken. The Righteous Defender. Spiteful Summoner is a broke card. If you build a deck around it, so this is the only RNG component in the deck. Really, if you think about it, like pure RNG, like Dragonoid Operative, yes, it's RNG because but we do in the RNG built around having dragons in our hand, yes. But Spiteful Summoner is the RNG card, and it always hits Mind Control. We don't mess around with getting an 8-drop because we just hit a 10-drop every time. So this card is really, really powerful. On turn 6 is kind of our mid-range tempo turn swing. We play this card, and it swings out a 10-drop minion. And so against like big priests, where they have to maybe cast like, and I've seen almost 0 big priests, by the way, in the upper ranks here. In the lower ranks, it's still, big priest is still a phenomenal deck. It has about the same % win rate, but it's more of a high roll deck. And against Kazakus priest, which seems to be more popular, if you think about it, your minion can get Potion of Madness, so it's from Barnes, and so you kind of lose that really powerful killing power. But I think you might have earlier control aspects to Big Priest. But again, the issue is we want to put bodies on the board. We put minions on the board to contest aggro minions, right? To aggro decks, and then we have Dustbreaker, right? With Big Priest, you have to really rely on getting the RNG, I think, a little harder. And it's actually, I think it's a harder deck to play than this one for sure, because then we have to get the thing where we have to cast like 4 spells to resurrect our minions. And it seems like the control style decks are going to Warlock more. This is just my opinion. With Spiteful Summoner, we always get a 10-drop. So like you'll see in this last game how OP this is. Because like you can draw a Tyrannius, or whatever it is, that 12-drop. You can't be targeted by spells. We can draw Yashiraj. There are some weaker drops like Cthulhu. Yes, it's pretty terrible. We get a 6/6. But if you think about it, I play a 6-mana spell, so the minimum I get is 10 stats in the spell. So you can see the theme of this deck. It's outstatting your opponent on every turn. If I outstat my opponent every turn, I out-tempo them. So that's why there's very few mages, I feel like, because we just out-tempo them the whole game. And if they play that weapon on turn 5 that would draw 3 cards, there's games where I fatigue the mage and he just dies from fatigue, because they literally cannot out-tempo you. It's just the tempo in this is crazy, because they don't play Cobalt Scalebane in that deck, right? Because it's such a high cost. They want to play secrets and synergize secrets and draw stuff from their hands. It just doesn't work. Bone Mare is still a broken card, because it puts a 5/5 minion on the board. And you're often, with this tempo plays, you already have extremely well statted minion. Remember, all this stuff synergizes with Keleseth. And we've removed the 2 Free from Ambers, so we have more minions in the deck. So Bone Mare is extremely broke. I play this, I get not only a 5/5 minion on the board, but it buffs another minion, and it's good against aggro. The problem with this deck is there's really no taunt power. So if we are behind in the board, say against like aggro paladin, which is sort of, again, a 55% win rate matchup, I think. Depends on how many Dustbreakers and stuff you get, really. It might be closer to 50-50, but Bone Mare, because you're usually dead by turn 6. And it depends if they get like 2 Call to Arms. Again, some of it is just luck. But with the Bone Mare, if I put it on and I get +4/+4, I also have a 5-cost minion on the board, or 5/5 minion on the board, or a 6/6 minion of Keleseth, and it buffs another minion by +4/+4. And against like aggro decks, like even a priest, you have to watch out for their mind control sometimes, so they play a similar deck. But you can sometimes just mind control the minion back. But you just have to watch out for that type of stuff. Quarter Creeper is just a busted card, because you draw it in your hand, And oftentimes it costs, by the time you play it, by turn 6 or so, it's 0 cost. And you can 0 cost and bone merit. So think about the synergy there. You play a 5/5 for free, you bone merit, you play a 5/5, and you buff. So you have, in one turn on turn 7, you play just a ton of stats on the board. The RNG, since you removed Free from Amber from the deck, or I should say Firebat and Zalea did, Grand Archivist basically hits mind control every time. Well, you just want to mind control your dude, right? Because this is a tempo deck. We really are trying to kill our opponent by like turn 10 most of the time if they're like a control-y style deck. We just want to mind control really powerful targets. So an example you'll see is an amazing example in the final match against this Warlock. See him, I think, trade into some minions, and we mind control one of his slimes that he can't kill off. And most of the time against control decks or like Kazakus decks, unless they hit their combo perfectly, they have to spend so many cards out of their hand, so it really nullifies their whole win condition to just try to neutralize the tempo that you're throwing at them, because you're constantly throwing minions on the board. So here's the thing. We play a 4/7 minion, and by the time we usually play this minion, he's already a 5/8. We have to watch that, because if they Anduin you, that can be a problem. So if it's 4/7, that's even better against priests, and we mind control a dude. But it's really good against and again, it's used against big priests too. Like you can mind control their guy, but it's really good against warlocks, because we can just mind control one of their void lords. Because if you think about it, they play their void lord on 9, usually with 9 mana, or usually by the time they're playing their second void lord, something like that, we Grand Archivist it. Boom, we actually possess their void lord. Now they have to come through their void lord. They wasted their whole turn, and they also lose the Gul'dan and the synergy from N'Zoth if they play a really greedy version of the deck. And of course, mind control is just really busted in general. So it synergizes with Spiteful Summoners, and we basically get a mind control in turn 8, which is just really broken. Plus we get the body. Again, the tempo is just insane if you think about it. We get the body on the board, but we also get mind control in the hand. So versus like other priests who play similar versions of this deck, we mind control, and it's very valuable against any type of control deck, because you just mind control it. So the way this deck really loses is if we like versing aggro, if we don't draw a Dustbreaker, that's really pretty bad. We don't. South Sea Captain is a card you want to just keep in your hand pretty much all the time, because we can draw patches out of the deck. It's just great. Kel'Seth is always a keep. Northshire Cleric is always a keep in your hand. Against aggro, you might think about keeping the Dragon Synergy from having Dustbreaker in your hand. Against Paladin, I'm thinking mostly, because they just spread the board so wide, and Dustbreaker just destroys them. If you get 2 Dustbreakers, you automatically pretty much win against a Paladin. There's just no way they're going to be able to build the tempo back. It's just really hard. The way this deck loses is if you draw mind control, because mind control is a synergy that drives the deck together. So the odds of that are really low, right? We only have 2 spells in the deck, and the great thing is when we fight mages, the only way they can really counterspell is if they counterspell our coin, right? And that's pretty much useless. And so they have to get really lucky with the counterspell on turn 1. And the best opener we can pretty much get is Northshire Cleric into Prince Kel'Seth. And then the tempo is crazy. You'll just find out that the tempo is crazy. Once you start playing the 6-drop, it's broken. It doesn't mean you're a good player. It means the deck is broken. That's why the name of the deck is called Broken. Is then we play like this. So we get like Yasharaj on. We play a 6-drop into Yasharaj, and we draw out a Dragonoid Operative, which is buffed by Kel'Seth. The tempo swing is just on turn 6 is insane. And then it goes into your Bone Mare turn. So you have 2 or 3 bodies on the board, and then we Bone Mare one of them. It's just too much for the opponent to handle. You know, they have to constantly be like clearing the board out, and they can't really build up all their combo pieces. You know, they have so low cards in their hand. The whole point of the board, the deck, is we want to build up early game tempo, and mid range we want to just annihilate them. You know, and then at late game we have like mind control effects to blow through like large taunt targets like the Void Lords. Let's check out some games, and Hope you enjoyed this deck breakdown on how to get legend. So we're 1 star away, and we're going to hit legend. It's one of my personal goals for this game is to hit legend rank. It's been a kind of a grind, as I would expect it to be. Basically, the tips on hitting legend, I think, it's been pretty much a steady climb. And I'm going to give some analysis in the earlier part of this video if you haven't heard anything. But these are just going to highlight some games of where I basically play and get legend. I kind of like all these as a potential draw. We kind of need to get a dragon in our hand, but oh, perfect. It's maybe a control paladin because they always play a 1-drop, which is like shocking. So this guy is call to arms in his hand for sure. We have to be watching out for that, or 2 divine favor, something like that. I want to keep Corridor Creeper in my hand because if I Dustbreaker all his minions,
Put this apple on your head.
so he just got a little greedy. He missed with that guy here. We want to just kind of keep the pace going, I think. I don't really want to play this minion, but I just want to heal this guy up and attack here. Just value trade. Because he definitely has Call to Arms in his hand. We only have 1 dragon, but we have both of our Dustbreakers. He's going to play his Corridor Creeper. Nope, there it is. There's the first one. It's got 2 divine shields. So we're going to play our first Dustbreaker here. And then we're going to play our Corridor Creeper. Okay, perfect. Now we can steal both of those attacks. Hopefully it lands on this guy right here. And it did not, so that is fine though. So actually we just drew another dragon. That's perfect. Unfortunately it is going to kill this guy. So we don't want to do that. That was his cards 4 and 5. So let's get a little greedy here. We're going to just steal. Just gonna steal that guy's.
Beware the shadow.
Gonna force him to have to trade in. He has Divine Favor in his hand. He's got to. We're saving the second Dustbreaker just in case he plays the second one. Perfect. Okay, if that falls on one of the lower guys, then so he's just value trading in. That's great. That's right, that could be Dustbreaker now. So this is just a great Dustbreaker target. Actually, we should just steal that minion here. That minion's attack. And we're going to intentionally miss the draw here. And that could be Sunkeeper Terran. Unidentified Maul. Actually, that's an okay draw, so I'm going to keep it. We can give our minions Divine Shield next turn. Now he's going to have to trade all his minions into here. He's got Divine Favor there.
Reporting for duty.
Or maybe not. Just Sassy Deckhand. So we have 7. I don't want him to draw Sunkeeper Terran, so I'm just going to pop him here. And Divine Favor, just annihilate these guys here.
Medicine. loathsome insect.
The victory is yours.
He was just waiting to see if I had it. I mean, he shouldn't have given up, though. He could have Divine Favor. So 24% of our games in this upper rank are against basically Paladin players. You know, aggro Paladin. 100% aggro Paladin. About 95% of my games are against aggro Paladin when they do play Paladin. I've only played against one control Paladin, and the game was extremely close. A lot closer than it should have been. And it was because I misplayed a mind control. I could misplay a mind control on this guy. So we're really close. This is the last game. Maybe we'll get legend in this game. Now pretty much every Warlock I've played is control Warlock. So Dustbreaker is extremely good. But we want to, since we're going first, we want to push for early game. If we draw, even drawing mind control is not horrific, because we want to mind control his Void Lords. It's obviously not the best pick. But if he's aggro, we're in a world of hurt. Okay, so that card could be an aggro card. Okay, since he didn't play anything after that, he's probably not aggro. Okay, playing the Ooze, that's fine. That's actually a really good play from him because we don't have another dragon in our hand, so we can't really Dustbreaker this board. So I'm going to play this card just to throw a body out there. I'm going to eat another 2 damage, but he's also going to play 2 guys. So these are both, right here, are both options for this type of deck, but Mortal Coil is more likely, but it definitely could be Chilling Tunneler. A lot less people are playing this card if he's playing Q Block. So I kind of go with the one that's more probable. But people were playing that card, so what I'm hoping is he trades in. I can actually Death Coil this guy. And that actually lowers our 2 Corridor Creepers now, so we're going to have a lot of momentum. So first of all, we want to draw. Another Dustbreaker, if that's okay. We're just going to throw this guy out here in our face. Because we could have drawn Keliseth, right? Our turns have been extremely weak up this point, but as a control matchup, we sometimes can get a lot more early board pressure, but we've drawn both of our Corridor Creepers. We want to play those for 0, really, and now we're going later in the game. It's going to just be harder to play them. This is all about mind controlling his guys. He just drew 10 cards, so he's got to play something. See? So it doesn't even matter if he attacks my face, because he doesn't really get anything. I still don't have that good of a hand. Let's tag him here and just see what happens. These guys drop down to 3, so that's really good. We'll play one of them. We'll actually draw. And we'll play this guy here. And next turn we're going to play Spiteful Summoner. We want to save these Dustbreakers for when he plays, like, he's probably got the 5-drop in his hand, where he plays the summon the other minion. And that other summons a Doomguard or another guy. But that's going to give him a problem now, so we're starting to build tempo on the board. And not like amazing tempo, but decent tempo. But so he's going to play that thing on 5 or on 6. He could actually have coined that out this turn instead of playing this. So I'm assuming he actually has like the weapon, and he's just deciding on what he wants, how he wants to handle this. He could tag in here and then Hellfire. So he decided to play it. He's going to coin and destroy it, so he heals himself for 8. And then he, you saw he moved the arrow there. That means he drew the the Doomguard. That's fine. And Twilight Acolyte is actually really powerful on that. Twilight Acolyte is really good on that. And then we kind of want to probably trade it. So it just has 2 attack now. And I can actually draw a card on this.
Right away.
And that'll be fine. We're kind of far behind. Okay, Kobold Scalebane. And we'll play another one of these. And he kind of rushed that. As a cube lock, you know, he's sort of, again, he feels like he's falling behind. So he probably had to feel like, hey, I have to do that. So he probably has the other Void Lord in his hand. Now we're coming up on our Bone Mirror turns, though, so we're going to give him a hard time. Okay, that's Flame Strike. It's fine. Or Hellfire, I'm sorry. So he is like, he kind of has this type of effect where he has like blank turns. We can't really do anything about that, unfortunately, but we will play Kaliseth, I guess, and heal. That's actually okay, because he could equip the weapon, I guess, this turn, which is fine. And then we'll actually mind control his guy next to him. We're going into turn 8, so this is perfect for us, because now we can mind control him with our Grand Archivist, and we have to get these dudes out of our hand. These, before we draw the mind controls. Because otherwise we're going to start mind controlling him with this guy here. That's a pretty difficult minion for him to handle. I can't heal it, but I can Bone Mirror it. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I want him to draw his Void Lord off this. If not, I'm just going to nerf it. Actually, I won't even do it. I'll go Bone Mirror face. And he can't Siphon Soul this target either. The best drop is actually Yashiraj, I think. So let's see what he gets. Perfect. But now he actually plays another minion. Oh, that's perfect. So either one of these is really good for us, actually. To get. It's obviously better to get this one, because it really stuffs him down. Okay, he's gonna. That's fine. We can see. We don't want to. We want to save our Dust Breakers for that. This is just, all these targets are actually decent, but remember, we only have 2 mind controls in our deck now. So I'm just gonna chill here a little bit, just thinking. This could be challenging now.
I tried this.
That was the best target to get. Now we would have to clear out this guy. We could try to mind control that one again, but we actually want to sacrifice it so we control the second mind control. Perfect. See what he does here. It's a bone now. Oh, no, it's a cube. Interesting. Oh, that's really bad for him because I'm going to mind control that. Maybe I can't. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I totally can. Okay, so we're going to pop this and mind control it. Because we're going to use our Dust Breaker to break it. We can actually heal this guy so he doesn't die. Dust Breaker.
Meddlesome insects. Revenge. Fireball. I tried this.
And that's okay. We don't get our second Spiteful Summoner, but now he's in big time trouble. So there we got it. We just got Legend.
Well played.
First time.